Hey, how's it going out there, folks? Welcome back here to a Sunday, January 5th, 2025 is the date. About 12:09 p.m. here, California time. Latest activity shows a little small microquake across Southern California. I think that's shown up here on the China Lake Station. Little spike of an earthquake there outside of Ridgecrest there in Southern California. Earlier this morning, a little bit of larger activity here across the El Salvador area, where we've seen a 6.2 earthquake striking into the Middle America Trench, about 30 miles deep there into that region. And I believe that's about the only largest activity so far today. Looking at the Ethiopia movement, that's still continuing here across that rift boundary with a handful more earthquakes here in the last 24 hours. 4 of them after midnight here, with a bunch of fours stirring up here across this area. The latest seismograph station there in the Ethiopia area showing the last 24 hours of earthquake activity. There's a number of them. These are going to be the localized events here on the graph. This long duration event is going to be I believe that's going to be from that 6-pointer that struck there in the Middle America Trench earlier this morning. That was about 9 o'clock local time here, so that would definitely coincide with this reading right here. It's definitely an interesting signal because, a 6-pointer, 6.2, 6.1 can definitely be picked up across the seismograph stations around the globe. So it looks like this one's in full operation and picking up that distant signature, which I firmly believe that's going to be the 6-pointer thousands of miles away. But as far as localized activity, definitely being picked up there. A number of earthquakes in the last 24 hours, including some smaller ones as well. These bigger events are going to be the 4s that are showing up on the USGS map here. But like I said, there's definitely a number of other earthquakes in that area as it's picking up the continued movement there across the rift boundary. No new report in terms of any volcanic status out here across the Ethiopia area. We do have the volcano just up north here, I believe that's Dauphin Volcano. That is the area where that steam eruption video came from here recently. But no official word on an eruption across that area. It's still at a minor activity or eruption warning level. Same for the Fantel volcano down here a little bit further south. But overall, still seeing somewhat amplified conditions out there, and just watching it closely to see what takes place here across the that rift boundary. That brings up, let me check out the total tally here, see what we got so far. About 78 earthquakes here in total across the rift zone. With, like I said, some minor stuff going on, some uplift of the land, some cracks in the land as well. No thermal anomalies being recorded there in satellite imagery, but it's awfully strange to get this much earthquake activity and starting to see some steam vents pop up there due to potentially magma rising up in this area. But it's a lot bigger here than one would think just for a localized event. This is pretty large area. We'll continue to watch that and report back on it. For the West Coast here across California, let's go ahead and zoom in, see what we have out here across the area today. As far as 2.5 and above, well, that's going to be 0. Looks like a 3.6 late last night, just before midnight out in Nevada. Aside from that, mostly smaller microquake activity out here today. Really nothing of any major interest in terms of swarming. Same for the Bay Area of Northern California. Typical activity here across the Clear Lake volcanic field. That's the geothermal plants that are always producing earthquakes every single day. Northern California, one more earthquake here after midnight, a 2.4 in our same area around the region that's seen the 7-pointer here a few weeks back, almost a month ago now. It's been over a month, actually. And as you can see here across the rest of the country, aside from some cold, bitter air and icy conditions, earthquake activity is fairly quiet. A little bit of movement there in western Texas. Let me give a quick glance here at the Yellowstone overview, see if there's anything going on there across the area. I don't see it. Not a whole lot going on. But here's another prime example of how that 6-pointer can show up thousands of miles away. This is Yellowstone, right? Northwestern Wyoming here in the States. That 6-pointer stirred up down there in El Salvador. But here's that reading showing up quite nicely there on a couple of seismograph stations locally. But as far as earthquake activity locally, it's pretty quiet. There's not a whole lot going on. Down here across the Fiji area, a bunch of deep earthquake activity yesterday. Very minimal migrational movement here across the plate boundary. Actually, it looks pretty quiet down there for now. New Zealand seeing a little bit of swarming out here. I believe that's associated with that volcano out there across the North Island region, off the North Island coast area. Let me see here. Where was that at? Showing up on this station quite nicely. A lot of earthquake activity actually around that volcano, and I believe that's coming off of the White Island area out here off the North Island coast. A lot of earthquake activity here recently around that region. Still sitting at an alert level 2. Looking at the views out there, looks like there's some volcanic gases coming out of that thing. But that's been kind of off and on. That's been common, it seems like, off and on here over the past year or so. But they are seeing a little bit of earthquake activity out there, specifically around that volcano in the Bay of Plenty. There's a little bit better view. Aside from that, not a whole lot of earthquake activity happening elsewhere outside of that region of that volcano. South Island area, a couple smaller quakes out there, but really nothing big. Nothing of any noteworthy movement there across the plate boundary for now. Newer activity here across the Solomon Islands area. Outside Solomon Islands, 5.3. Papua New Guinea area earlier this morning. Looks like about 9:24 or so. A lot of older activity out here on the map in these regions today. We'll watch, definitely watch over here, see if things start to progress upward. Right now, Southern California, just a little too quiet. South America area, a couple smaller quakes there with the 2.7, one of the latest quakes. And aside from that, a bunch of deep activity and surface adjustment across the Java Trench and the Philippines area. The crunch zone, always seen earthquake activity, and that's what's happening today still. A little bit of activity stirring up across the Turkey area. See a 4-pointer in there, some other smaller quakes. The Atlantic Ocean awfully quiet from the looks of it. Big Island, Hawaii starting to stir up here, it looks like, a tad bit, following the pause in the eruption out here across Kilauea Volcano. What we got here? 3.7, a little odd earthquake way offshore here. 6 miles deep. Aside from that, some deeper activity underneath the Kilauea Volcano. We'll give a quick glance here at the Kilauea Volcano status here, which is still sitting at an orange and a watch level. I don't really want to look at that real quick. We'll check out webcams, see what we got here up at the summit area. Yeah, still just looks like it's taking a little pause there, a little breather, so to speak, even though we're still seeing volcanic gases seep up. Looks like the eruption phase has come to an end for now. I know inflation was stirring up last night across the area in terms of reinflation. Let's check this out here real quick, see what we have for the latest data. Yep, going back up. Here's a little pause from it was Friday night, going up here. And hard to say, though, on if we're going to see a return of the eruption across that same area, or maybe we might have a little blockage down there, and it could stir up somewhere else around the lava lake. But we'll keep an eye on it. Either way, inflation is on the rise following the pause in the eruption. Space weather activity real quick here. Number of M flares, goodness, 3947 has been popping like crazy. Look at all those flares here in the last 48 hours, including a couple X flares, and then the previous one as well. That's a lot of activity there from 3947 here. That's currently in, that's pretty recent here. This position right here, it is in more of an Earth-directed view. Should anything blast off here in the near future in terms of CME activity. That's a fairly fancy sunspot. Definitely throwing off a bunch of M flares. Look at the solar flux chart here. See if I can get this to stir up. There we go. Crazy. These are very impulsive, or very, what's the word I'm looking for? Somewhat impulsive events here. Seems like it just pops up out of the blue here periodically on all these M flares, throwing off an X flare in the mix as well. M flare category right here. X flare, we had at least two. We had two of them there. Well, three of them. 3 X flares here in the last 3 days. One, the 1.85, the largest of the three. One back here, and then there's another one right here. So could be seeing an X flare here again soon. Definitely keep an eye on that. And I think if anything should blast off for CME activity, will be Earth-directed, geoeffective in the coming days. Right now, the aurora forecast fairly minimal. Not a whole lot there expected. Proton event is still stirring up out here because of all the elevated flaring. So we're getting bombarded here with a bunch of solar protons hitting the ionosphere, mainly across the southern area here of the polar regions. The polar region, their southern area, and also a little bit up north as well, across North America. Aside from that, they got on board here with the flare threat. That's good. 25% chance for X flare, 75 for M flare, and of course C flare. We're almost consistently searing, consistently flaring with C flare activity. Look at the weather forecast out here today for severe weather-wise. Got an enhanced zone down here across Louisiana, portions of Mississippi as well. That has a tornado threat today, and they included a 10% hatched area, as you can see there on the chart. That means that this is the greatest area of concern in terms of large-scale, big-time tornado activity, with a 10% or greater probability of an EF2 up to an EF5, which is the highest category there for the tornado category, EF5. Within about 25 miles of a point. So a lot of trees out there. Got to be cautious, careful. Keep an eye on the weather today. And that's the main area of concern. But there is a 5% and 2% surrounding this area. So if you're down there today in that region, heads up. Big time wind threat out there as well. Not a whole lot for hail. There is little potential, though, for some damaging hail in the area today. Tomorrow, that movement shifts further to the east here with only a marginal risk. Right now, that could change, though. 2% chance here for some tornado activity tomorrow as we begin the new week. A glance here at the current conditions. Well, this is current right here. Yeah, this is a GFS model, but this is a forecast model as well, showing the patterns as we head deeper into next week. We might have another repeat of what we're seeing right now towards the end of next week with some snow and ice in the same areas that are getting hit right now. And there's just a lot of cold air coming down here. Not really seeing any change in the pattern. Cold air coming down from the north. One little low pressure system off the west coast here as we head into next week, here in about 2 weeks or so. But it's a little interesting there. This pattern changes, looks to be stuck. See what we got. Current weather radar. Obviously, those storms are starting to fire up right now, getting the severe weather threat across the area. Temperature-wise, here comes a lot of that colder air wrapping around that low pressure system there. That's going to continue to deepen a little bit as we head into nighttime hours. That cold air making its way down into Dallas, Texas, with some chilly overnight lows there in the 20s across Dallas. Goodness, Oklahoma City, 16 degrees. Salina up here, -2. Wow. That's pretty cold. And again, it looks like it's going to be quite common here to have some cool weather out here in the next couple days. California, just kind of average here across Sacramento Valley. Really not expecting anything major. In fact, this is what I call the most boring weather you can have out here. It's about 63 degrees, 64 degrees for the high today. Little bit of high clouds, and that's it. No wind, no rain, no snow. It's just boring as can be. I'd rather actually have at least some excitement here. I know it's dangerous when you're out there on the roads, but I don't know. I'd rather have cold instead of just a neutral, boring weather. That's just me, though. Either way, folks, got a lot of cold air coming in here. Let's check out the rain accumulation. I know California is not going to get a whole bunch down south here. Snow accumulation. This is what they're calling here. That's interesting. Across Texas, quite a bit there. 10 inches, that's a little chaotic. You never know. Let's see, what were these guys calling? Yeah, definitely showing some new snowfall out there across the majority of the country. Except for California, a little bit in the mountains there, but the West Coast, pretty dry. But here's your expected snowfall here in the next couple weeks. A little bit of snow out in the area of the country, the majority of the country, it looks like. Goodness. So stay warm out there. If you're out there in the cold, I'd be out there chopping firewood and getting some logs there put in the fireplace. All right, folks, earthquake activity, as I mentioned here, just kind of watching things here today, seeing how everything plays out. Still seeing earthquake activity. Ethiopia, rift boundary out here. A couple smaller quakes there. Northern California, Petrolia, that's a very small one. Barrett picking up a small earthquake down there in Southern Cal. Really nothing major going on here today, folks. So we'll sit off on the side, and we'll be back here a little bit later on this evening. If something major happens here, we'll jump in and cover that. Have a good Sunday, and we'll catch you guys back out here a little bit later. Take care.